Well, welcome to the fun and mentals of real estate. I hope we're going to have some fun today.
We always do. It's good to be back. I know I missed a couple.
Glenn the funny guy's back today.
Yes, I'll lighten these up a little.
I'm so happy that Glenn's back. All right, so here's the deal. Today we have a question of the day, and then we'll tell you why we're here. What's our question of the day?
Question of the day is, do the sellers have to be completely out before we close?
That's a very good question.
Yeah.
See, Glenn, he's got all his papers.
I am. We're ready for closing. Yeah, we ready?
We're not quite ready for closing in our buyer series here today. Glen Calvin at Guild Mortgage and Josh Gulledge, our expert buyer's agent, is with us today, and we are here to help you build wealth, live your dream lifestyle,
leave legacies.
And
you got it. Boy, it's been a while. I forgot.
He's rusty already.
Yes, I'm rusty.
Oh my gosh, that's what happens. All right, super good. So we're not quite ready for closing. We've been under contract for a while now, right?
Right.
And so now we're getting very close to closing.
Yeah.
And we know that the numbers are going to come down soon, and we're going to get to go to the title company, and we're going to get those keys, and it's going to be like the wedding day, right? Because we did say this is kind of like.
So unlike the wedding date, I do get to see the bride before I close, right?
Oh, look at that! All right, so we are at final walkthrough stage.
So question I had is, do we get to see the house before I buy it?
Before you buy it, and does the seller really need to be out before you close, right, and go see it? So in your contracts in St. Louis, now it's different state to state, and over time things change. So what's super interesting, I've been selling for over 30 years, and it used to be you never got the keys at closing. It didn't happen. The seller got like a week to move out, sometimes 2 weeks, but they always had a weekend. And then you were like, oh my gosh, what did the seller do to the house by the time?
Yeah.
Right? Well, after enduring all the problems post-closing for so many years, St. Louis has flipped, and now the standard, not always, and you can negotiate differently, but the standard practice is that you expect to have keys and access on the day of closing, as long as your money's moved around, and you expect to be able to walk through that house. Your contracts give you up to 4 days prior to closing to do that.
So how soon do you want to do? I would say if I do it too early in the process, they might not have everything out, and it could change. Do I want to do it the morning of?
What do you think, Josh? I mean, it's like
it is.
Our wonderful contract to close expert, Linda Munzer, she always helps us find out when the sellers are actually going to be moved out, right? And it is helpful if you can see it vacant, don't you think? But sometimes buyers want to check out a certain repair or whatever, and we want to get in there maybe before. But ideal is, hey, sellers got all their stuff out. That's the ideal. If we can, in that 4-day window, make sure that it's empty, we can see if there's any damage done when they moved out.
And before we get to the walkthrough, what do you? Because you're usually representing the sellers. What are you saying to them? What are you setting the expectation for them about what they should be?
Right. So sellers call all the time because it's getting, they're getting ready to move out, pack up. And so we always send them an email to tell them what's in the contract that should stay. Right. And there's some standard stuff that should stay. And part of the walkthrough is, did the sellers take anything that was supposed to stay?
We've all heard the horror stories. They took the light bulb. They took the fridge.
Right, whatever. So standard is your bathroom mirrors need to stay. So
bathroom mirrors,
not, bathroom mirrors and attached mirrors are standard in our contracts here.
About like curtains and drapes.
What's standard is blinds, shades, shutters, awnings.
Okay.
Unless you've written in your contract that window treatments stay, which would be a drape. But what's interesting is the drapery rod is built in, supposed to stay, but not the drape itself. You have to write in the drape. Can you believe it? That's just the way it is.
Craziness.
Blind, shutter, shades, awnings, curtain rods stay. Another big question is nail holes. Hey, do I got to patch all these nail holes? And I'm like, well, how big are the nail holes, right? So if they're like a pin size, it's you can hardly notice. Most sellers won't try to mess up the wall with that. But if they're big and gaping, we try to set the expectation that
maybe you took a big TV off the wall.
Yeah,
right, and there's big bolts. Right.
Try to do that. It should be cleaned, right? So we just, hey, you need it cleaned. Do you need a deep cleaner? Do you need a cleaning lady?
Right.
We'll get them over there. Right, so those are some of the big questions. And then what's in the contract, because sometimes they forget, because we can write stuff in. What's some of the typical stuff you write in, Josh, that stay that's not already written in the contract?
again, sometimes I am proactive and I like to list stuff, even if it naturally stays, just to make sure that the sellers understand, because it comes down to like big one. A lot of times is ring doorbells. They're supposed to stay.
Oh yeah.
Ring security cameras above your garage. You could deck out that house with $2,000 worth of cameras.
That's true.
So cameras stay. Again, there's just a lot of stuff like
Fridge,
that.
washer dryers.
Again, TV mounts. TVs can go, but mounts are supposed to stay.
Gotcha.
So a lot of times I either want to be a little specific and say, hey, you're leaving the mount, or you're taking the whole thing. Like, I try to make sure my buyers understand what's coming out, their way too.
And we probably addressed this earlier, but the lenders are going to want you to say it stays at no value.
Yeah.
Because we're loaning you on the real estate. We're not loaning you on the
couch,
the curtains,
the
fridge, and the washer and dryer. And really, what is the value of a used TV or washer and dryer? Really, it
but
doesn't.
Of course, this appraiser has to value and deduct it from what he appraises the property at. So if he appraises the property for $400 and he thinks you got $2,000 worth of items, then the lender's going to think you bought that place for $398.
Right, and we're not loaning you on those items. We're loaning you on the real estate.
Yeah, and Josh is always good about that.
But again, I think being a little more, and again, when I write an offer, I click through the photos specifically for that and say, hey, this is going, this is staying. Like islands have typically really nice bar stools. Bar stools go. I have to make sure the buyer's like, no, like, hey, you're finding your own bar stools. Like, yes, the ones that are there match right now, but
unless you ask for them and write it in.
But as far as walkthrough goes, it is, again, I try to. It's for the buyer's protection. That's all it is for. So
and you're going to be there with them, right?
Yeah, if it's a vacant home and when they bought it, it was vacant, and my buyers are super flexible on timing, I try to get a date really close to closing, like the night before sometimes. Like, make sure that it's the littlest time between potential problems like fires, flooding, any damage of any sort.
And really, not even just flooding, just water in the basement from a heavy rainstorm.
Heavy rainstorm.
Water from anywhere. So
the movers ding the wall. They carried something down from the upstairs, and all the whole wall along the stairs is all marked up. But stuff like that.
And vice versa. If it's a contract that we had the sellers do 5 different repairs and they're pretty extensive, I like to get in a couple days before because that's our time to check and make sure they did the repairs.
Yeah, they'd send us paperwork, and our TC's very, very good at getting the paid receipts and stuff for things that are supposed to be done. We know that listing agents sure thinks they're done usually, but sometimes you get over there and it's actually not done.
Yeah, and it's happened again. Just a couple years ago, we had one big plumbing repair. I knew what it looked like. I knew what it needed to be done. I pulled up I had the inspection report and all the items that needed to be fixed, and I went down there. We had paid receipt. We had lien waiver. Sellers had paid. They were gone out of state, right? They assumed everything was done. I walked through. It's like, yeah, they definitely didn't do what this says they were supposed to do. Wow. Took pictures, sent off, and said, hey, like, you need to call this plumber, like, because they did not do this plumbing repair. And it was like $1,000 plumbing repair. So,
and if it's in the contract, the lender's going to want it done. So if it's part of the contract, so that can delay, and the lender's going to want proof that it was that the repair was done.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that if you do have an inspection period in your contract, because they are built in, but if you didn't waive it, you do have one.
Right.
A lot of these things are negotiated on an inspection notice, and the lender
doesn't
care about them, doesn't know about them.
This one.
And so it is purely protective, and your agent needs to protect you. If I go into a house, if I'm buying a house myself, and I walk in and I see there's a bag of trash, or they did mark up the wall, I'd probably say, oh, I'll take the trash out. I'll probably paint the wall.
Right.
But if I'm representing someone, I have a whole different attitude. It is what that buyer wants. It's protective of the buyer. So if I see that trash or that paint, I'm taking pictures. I'm calling the listing agent. I'm sending it over. One of my favorite stories is this. We were in a house. Everything was supposed to be. There was only one thing we asked the seller to do. Just one. And it was repair the cotton picking dishwasher. Okay? Get there. The dishwasher is taken apart and it's laying all over the counter. It is not repaired. And so it's probably the day or 2 days before closing. And I think they were waiting on a part, couldn't get a part. I call the listing agent. I take the pictures and I'm like, no dishwasher. And she's like, well, it was covered under home warranty, and I guess they couldn't find the part and whatever. I'm like, I really don't care. I want money for a dishwasher. Right. Now, this is super interesting. The husband was like, yeah, it's okay. We'll get a dishwasher. Wife Right? So after talking to them, we're literally sitting at closing. By the time we get to closing, I have negotiated $750 for a new dishwasher. This was some years ago because they can be more expensive than that. And this was a two-parter dishwasher, Anyway, the wife was so glad because the husband didn't really care, but he didn't really use the dishwasher either in this case. Yeah. Some do, this guy didn't. And so she was so glad that I went to bat for her and got that money. Because obviously it couldn't be done before closing, but they could give us the money to go get a new one, and that's what we did.
And so you're really going to negotiate all this before closing or get it all done. You're not going to say, we'll take, trust me, we'll take care of it.
You cannot sit at closing, and you cannot make side deals either.
I've found, again, you want a pleasant experience all the way through. You want to make sure that the buyers are happy at the end of the day.
Right.
But you also, it really does come down to your communication with the listing agent, because I've had many situations where moving is very stressful.
Yes,
it's stressful without any problems.
I talked to the listing agent about something being a problem, and I find out stuff like, oh, husband and wife are now all of a sudden getting a divorce.
Yeah.
They weren't getting a divorce 2 weeks ago. And I know that whatever it is, even small as taking out a bag of trash, it's poking a hornet's nest. And I've had agents before flat out tell me, like, if I tell them to go do this, they're not going to close, because sellers are fighting so hard and attorneys are involved. So it's like, at that point, it's like I told my buyer, like, again, I've grabbed many bags of trash and thrown it in my car to throw away myself. Like, hey, I want to make sure you get to closing, but I can't blow up the deal on, because you got to know when to fight and when not to fight. Right. But yeah, I mean, taking pictures of stuff, texting the listing agents. Sometimes it's just knowing, like, they forget it's moving stressful. Like, hey, did you realize, like, they left, like, important stuff, like, hey, there's like a little mini fridge in here, and like it looks like a whole box of memorabilia, like trophies. Like, are they coming back for this?
Or sometimes they are coming back.
Right, or they just forgot.
We got one more van full to get before closing, and then they're dropping off all the remaining keys and garage door openers. That's very common.
And it's stressful on both sides, isn't it? It's stressful selling that.
Yeah, it's very.
And a lot of times those sellers, they're not very often anymore, but a lot of times they're selling and buying on the same day too. So being proactive, being thoughtful, knowing that it's stressful for everybody, I think goes a long way.
And again, we will always go to bat. I mean, again, we've all had this scenarios where you go in and the walls are just completely beat up. They just ripped.
We had it happen one time once where the walls were. I mean, there were holes on every single wall in the entire house. They were mad about moving. They moved for some reason. I don't think the husband wanted to move. Something going on with the seller. They didn't really want to move. They moved, and they left that house in a shambles. And it was a poor. The poor buyer was standing there just awestruck at how bad it was.
Yeah, it was.
Aaron was walking through with him at the time, and Aaron was calm, cool, and collective. That's her job. He took the pictures.
Yeah.
We talked to the sellers. We got some money. We paid a painter to come in after and patch it and paint it. Awesome. And sometimes you just don't have control over people.
Right, and the same thing too. I mean, we all know government loans are crazy about peeling paint. And what I've seen just in the last few weeks, it's an outdoor handrail that needed to be painted, and every time the guy goes to paint, it's pouring down rain. So we can make allowances at closing. We can set some money aside in escrow to do those repairs afterwards. So it can close on that same day.
It's complicated. You don't have to do
it. But I've had it where people, I have to move in today. I don't have anywhere to go. And
that's true. Right. And utilities are another thing.
Oh, so, great, yeah.
In conjunction with your walkthrough, up to 4 days prior, you can also change over utilities. Now, a lot of people do it the day of closing. That's pretty common. And we try to encourage buyers to do sometimes a day ahead at least, sometimes 2 days, or at least they'll call in.
You find out the sellers have a bill.
And they find out that somehow there's a past bill.
Right.
And they wouldn't let them change it into their name.
Most of the time, the title company's going to.
I had to call them. The title company doesn't get involved in anything but sewer. They are not going to be involved in your utilities. So I had to call them. I had to find the story. We had to call the seller. We think it was even a bill prior to the seller.
Wow. But
we had to get the seller to call in and figure it out before closing, or we would have been stuck with a $700 bill, right? Just to get the gas on in our name, because is the seller really going to pay all that much attention to you after they get their money? Probably not. This is your time of leverage that you have to make sure that you either get money.
I'm an outsider, have never really officially bought a home before. We talked about that. So it's so amazing to me. It's stuff I never would have thought about. And the theme that we always have is getting professional people that have your best interests at heart. And you two are two of the best. But just making sure, because there's so much stuff that I wouldn't have even considered.
Right.
Yeah,
We do.
awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, even new constructions have walkthroughs to make sure that they.
That's
built it
true.
right.
And a big laundry list sometimes of items that you got to write down and check off. And there is a walkthrough notice. That
Nail
we send.
pops, yeah.
Nail pops. Now, Glenn does own a home, by the way. He just built a home.
I
He didn't
built
go
my
buy
own,
a resale
right.
home. So
I built
that
my
I'm
own.
just saying, he built his own house, and what can I say? He's just going to stay there forever, I think.
Yes.
With all his animals. That's what I think. I don't know. So we're having a little bit of fun because when you do get in there, sometimes it is just pristine and beautiful.
Yeah, I love it.
And it's exciting, yeah.
Whenever you do the walkthrough and the sellers have cleaned, they leave a bottle of champagne, some balloons, and a happy little note.
Yes.
I mean, it goes a long way. I love whenever my buyers walk in because they know that the home was taken care of and they're passing it to the new owner.
You've seen the good and the bad, right?
Hopefully, if you're a seller, you're going to present it in that kind of condition.
Treat people the way you'd want to be treated, right?
Pride of ownership. I'm
Pride of
huge
ownership.
on that. So
that's right. All right, well, fantastic. Well, thanks for joining us today on the final walkthrough.
All right.
Give us a like or a share, subscribe if you like the podcast. Share it, especially with some youngins, people maybe have never even bought a home before. It can be very informative and help them take some of the angst out of buying when you know what's coming down the pike, right? And so next week, maybe we'll get to closing.
Closing time. Yes.
We'll see. Maybe we'll get to the wedding day.
All right.
All right. We're going to have some real fun. All right. Always a little bit of Mendel. Always a little bit of fun. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Thanks.